I think this is a trap as you get older, where I'm like, I like Google Docs, so I'm gonna stick with Google Docs. Like,
Probably.
because I think there's this productivity thing where people watch your videos or they ask me like, what to do app do you use, and I'm like, you're still not really doing anything. And so I wonder, even our company, I help run AppSumo.com. We have a team that does really impressive. But people are like, I'm going to buy this tool and it's going to do everything. And I'm like, well, you still have to start the business. I think a lot of people want the hack. But what I'm curious about is, how did you get the habits? And you said that maybe some suggestions or thoughts of how you've built these habits, because I think that's something that all of us are want to keep improving on.
Yeah, I think I suppose it depends what we're talking about, right? Because I still struggle a lot with, for example, taking care of my health and exercising regularly, and I know that's something that you're quite into. So I'd be curious to get your kind of thoughts on that, because I'm in a way looking for a hack to encourage me more to, I don't know, eat better and exercise more regularly. I suppose when it comes to things like producing videos or producing emails each week, I guess the thing that I tell people is that it starts off as a sort of like forcing yourself to do it, because you can see the kind of long term trajectory. Like, and you sort of know in the back of your mind that if you do this thing with consistency and have faith that over time things will just get better, then it'll just grow. But then at some point the momentum starts to kind of build by itself. And so with my email newsletter, in the first few months of doing it, it was a case of, okay, no one's really reading this. What do I do? But now, I don't know, I've got like 30,000 something people reading it, and I know I have to do it each week. And so the momentum sort of drives itself. And equally now, like, it's no effort at all for me to, come home from work and make a YouTube video, because I've got the momentum. I've got these, I don't know, 600,000 people that are, supposedly waiting for a new video. So I think starting off with requiring motivation or discipline and then moving on to momentum, that kind of sustains it automatically.
One phrase that comes to my head is, you can't negotiate with terrorists. And the terrorist is me. And I just say, are you negotiating? Because like, there's sometimes, like a few weeks ago, I have a biking goal each week, and it was Sunday, and I had to do 40 miles, and I was like, I had a really rough week. 30's close enough. And I was like, you're negotiating with yourself. You don't negotiate.
Oh, that's interesting.
No negotiation.
Thinking of yourself as the terrorist.
Not terrorist. I mean, whatever you want to call it. I was, it's interesting with the responsibility. I think one thing that you said as well is the consistency. You said, well, every Friday I'm going to do this. I know with my own personal content, two things where I've struggled is just staying consistent. Like, I can go and do this and I'll do it for a year, and it does well, or pretty well. And then I'm like, this sucks. I'm tired. I don't have like 1 million followers. I'm going to give up. And I've really been working since I've kind of really gotten kickstarted and more motivated to share and help people in the past few months since Corona happened. It's figuring out how to make it sustainable. Because I think everyone starts a YouTube channel. Like, everyone's like, I'm going to start it, on sendfox.com. I'm going to start a newsletter, or I'm going to start posting. And they could do that for a month. But can they do it consistently for 2 years? And so maybe talk a little bit for yourself.
Yeah. This is something that I get asked about a lot. Like, how do you sustain this motivation? And I'd be intrigued to hear what you think about this, because for me, a big part of kind of why I do this stuff is because I'm trying to optimize for a future where my day job is optional, where I don't have to kind of be a full-time doctor if I don't want to, just to pay the bills. And so a big part of why is kind of trying to get to this future of having these multiple streams of passive income and so on. And I know that, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, that one of the easiest ways to get to that point is to just create a load of free content consistently over a very long period of time, build up an audience, and then you can kind of tap into that audience for monetization as and when you need it. So that's kind of what it is for me. And then the whole kind of, when you release a video, people seem to like it, and it's fun, and that cycle sustains itself. But I'm curious for you, right? Because you've presumably gotten beyond the point where you need to worry about, trying to become financially independent or whatever. Like, what still drives you to, for example, do a podcast like this, or continue producing content for your YouTube channel?
Yeah, that's something that I've been exploring a lot lately. And one of the things that I did, I think I mentioned it when I was chatting with you on your show, is that I just was trying to reflect on really what fulfills me. And I think that's honestly one of the best ways everyone can have an amazing work, which is just, what stuff fulfills you, and how do I do more of that during my week? Or what stuff, like for me, I don't have to work. So what do I want to work on for free? Or what do I want to do for fun? So like on a Saturday, it's 1:00. and I'm hanging out with you. And this is like, I was looking forward to it. I was like, oh man, there's going to be fun stuff to talk about. And I think it's really interesting. How do you turn your interest into a business? And obviously sometimes that can wear you out. And so I think you do one thing that I'm really trying to be intentional and self-aware around is which parts are burning me out. So like yesterday I was recording 2 videos, and out of the 3 to 4 hours of making the videos, I spent 3 hours on the tech, trying to get the software shit working and all this stuff. And 1 hour actually talking and creating the content. And so that burns me out. And what I realized though is like, I need to hire someone in the next week or 2 to help just come over and review all my tech stuff. And so I don't have to think about it again. And I've tried to be more intentional about what other things are taking that energy away. And so in the week, it's like, how do I spend my time in the fulfillment zone? Things that fulfill me are this conversation, or sharing things I'm learning from Sumo Group and our different companies. And the things like scheduling guests, or the thing of like trying to do collaborations, or the things that I just am not interested in, I'm really trying to reduce. And I think for people starting out, it's like, well, maybe they don't have that luxury, but they still can do some of that on weekends and nights and so forth. I think one thing that you said related to that was really fascinating, and I don't know if enough people think about it, is you said, and this is really great, there is a clear path to financial freedom following this model.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels almost like cheating.
No. But I think what's different is you knew, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about is suffering and rewards. So I mentioned that book, Courage to be Disliked, which I highly recommend. And I'm thinking about like, what do I want to suffer for? What is worth suffering? Because some suffering I just don't want. There's not the reward. But if you know the reward is I can have financial options, and all I have to do is this suffering, and then I'll get it, I'm going to go do that. And I like that. I think, that's a great way that you've put it out there. I hope that inspires a lot of other people to start the YouTube, and that helped you probably stick with it because you're like, well, if I want that outcome, I have to put in this work.
I think so, yeah. And I think it also helps to, like, if you can find something that you don't find to be that suffering, if that makes sense. Like, I find it like really freaking annoying having to set up the cameras and the lights every time, which is what makes me think, oh, I can't wait to move into a bigger place where I just have my own studio, because that's not like the fun bit of doing the video. Whereas I just love hearing my voice talking to a camera. It's just fantastic. And like the editing side of it used to be fun. And then kind of once you've been doing 200 videos, at that point, the editing starts to get a bit dry. So then I managed to outsource the editing of it. And so I don't really view it as suffering. And I think what a lot of people say is occasionally I'll get messages from Instagram being like, hey, it's easy for you to say about all this passive income and stuff. I'm not the sort of person who could put myself on YouTube. How do I make money without being on YouTube? And I'm like, well, it's not for everyone. And I like the thing that you said when you were on my channel was it last week? Which was, it's all about trying to monetize your passions in a sort of sustainable way. And so whatever you're passionate about, you can find a way to create content online for that, as Gary Vaynerchuk would say. And then it's just a path that's laid out for you that if you can just kind of do it consistently and well over a long period of time, why wouldn't you get to a point where you can then start monetizing the audience if you need to?
Well, I think even for the people that say that they don't want to put themselves out there, one, they can always be an employee. But two, one thing I was actually journaling earlier this morning is, what are the fear phrases that people say to stop themselves from starting a business?
Oh, interesting.
And
what was on your list?
Some of the fear phrases, let me pull up my notes on it. One of them says that I got an Instagram DM, and this girl said, hey, I have 3 businesses I'm running. Do you think I should do all 3 or just one of them? And what she actually is saying is that I'm scared because I don't know if any of them are going to work. So I'm just going to do kind of half-ass on all of them, and none will work. And that to me is a fear phrase from holding people back. Some of the other ones that were pretty interesting that I was thinking about, they've spent a lot of money, but they haven't made any money starting a business. One of the other this is one of my favorite ones, is they try to sell, or when they're starting a business online, they sell to everyone but people that know them.
Okay.
So they don't want anyone to know what they're doing. They want to make it harder on themselves, and they want to avoid rejection publicly. But I see, even for the person that messaged you says, I don't want to do YouTube, podcast doesn't show your face.
Yeah.
Email newsletters on sendfox.com or whatever other service people use, there's no face. Substack, whatever that is.
Or even starting a blog. It's all... Yeah, I feel like starting a YouTube channel and putting your face on it is is on one extreme end of the spectrum. There are so many other ways to do the whole content creating, putting yourself out there, sharing your work publicly. And one thing that I just recommend to everyone is please read Show Your Work by Austin Kleon, because I had so many qualms about putting myself online. Even with starting a blog, I was like, oh, I've got this domain, aliabdaal.com. I registered it way back in high school. And, what sort of person would be so narcissistic as to have their own domain name and to write on it? Like, who cares what I have to say? And then I read Show Your Work and I was like, all right, it's all about sharing my process publicly. And the people that want to follow along will follow along. And the people that don't won't see it anyway. So it's all good.
Well, I really like what you've kind of pushed back on me, and you said it's not suffering. So, and I think that's where I'm really wanting to spend more of my time in the content creation or education or infotainment, as we like to call it. In how do I spend my time more in the joy zone, right? Like this, if I could do this every day, all day, I would just do this, and that's what I'm trying to, or doing my best to spend more time there and avoiding the 3 hours of the webcam not working.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me actually. Like. Now having done the me talking to a camera on YouTube for the last 3 years, an area that I want to go into much more is having conversations like this where we're both recording on our ends and then potentially being able to turn that into their own videos. Because I love the idea, again, this is from Gary Vaynerchuk's playbook, which is you create this pillar piece of content like a long 1 to 2 hour long podcast or interview or whatever. And then you can chop out snippets from that and craft it into a narrative for a YouTube video. Or you can chop that, turn it into a tweet or Instagram story or whatever. And so the first time I tried this was a few months ago. I was interviewing an author of a book called The Unfair Advantage, which is like a business book about what makes people successful. And we ended up having like a 3 hour long chat. He came over to my place because he was touring all the UK universities way before lockdown. And then I sent that interview to one of my team members, and he's picked out like sort of about 5 minutes worth of sound bites, and we crafted a really compelling video of that. I just think that was fantastic because I got to chat with this guy for 3 hours and just chatted about whatever, and then someone else went through that conversation, took bits out of it, and then we turned it into a video. So this idea of repurposing this pillar content. Thank you, Gary V, for that advice.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we've been experimenting with, where the link, we do this as a video, but it also goes to a podcast, and then we put it on Instagram TV, and then we put some of the clips on YouTube, and we do it natively. I think the native part is the part that a lot of people miss out on. One thing I've been noticing when you were asking about Twitter, I don't love this, but it's also one thing I literally realized it this morning talking with some friends, is that you have to cater to the medium. And so on Twitter, I put out a lot of, maybe I'll put out a video or I'll put out a picture of like a marketing thing, and that does okay. And everyone has to figure out what works, but you have to say what works in this medium. And for Twitter, it is a lot of the quips.
Yeah.
it's quip central. It's like, it's meant for the Trumps and the people with quips that people want to retweet. And so there's something to be said to say, what's the medium of choice that you're great at, but also looking to some extent what's working in that medium. And so you can see on Twitter that is the stuff like Sahil from Gumroad, who I love. That stuff, he's really great, but his stuff is interesting and it's quippy. And it's like, well, why don't I experiment with that? And I think you do that interesting as well with your YouTube stuff, where you're known for productivity, you're known for medical school, but you also experiment. I like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm trying to be more comfortable with. Are you familiar with a YouTuber called Peter McKinnon?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's huge now, kind of like nearly 5 million subscribers. Absolutely, sort of exponential rise to fame over the last few years. And he started off as like doing photo and video tutorials, but a lot kind of vlogs alongside that. And then occasionally he would do an experimental piece like what's in my bag and what's my everyday carry and what does my wallet look like. And he talked in a video about how he used to get a lot of pushback about that. Comments would be like, "Bro, where's the next Photoshop tutorial? When's the next After Effects tutorial?" And he was saying in this video that when it's your own baby, it's your own YouTube channel, you don't want to get to a point where you feel like the audience is typecasting you and forcing you to make a certain type of content if that's not necessarily what you want to make. So his kind of appeal to creators everywhere was, feel free to experiment. It's okay. It's fine. Who cares if those videos don't get as many views as your educational video about After Effects? Like, that's fine, provided you're kind of flexing that creative muscle on your own part. And so when I saw that video, I was like, oh my God, it's like he's speaking directly to my soul. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be okay with doing a video about books or something because it's not directly related to what I was doing, but it's kind of the direction I want to be heading.
One thing I want to highlight is, did you get off work today?
I had the day off today. Yeah, Saturday. I do.
Yeah, the day off. A lot of people, and I was thinking about you earlier, or this morning, I was in bed watching videos of you.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
It's the first time I've heard that.
And it dawned on me that not only are you because, a lot of people, when they're starting a business or they want to be a content creator, they're like, well, I have this family, or I have this day job, or I have this thing. And I was like, Ali is not only a medical student, which is like, I don't know how many hours a week you guys are crazy busy, and you're also making high quality videos at the same time. Plus, it seems like you have a personal life from at least what you put out publicly.
I guess that's the impression I like to give.
Yeah. I was curious your thoughts on that when people say that, or more just like how that story has been for yourself.
Yeah, so I used to get this a lot. So I graduated med school in like 2 years ago. So I'm technically a junior doctor now, but so it's sort of a weird system. It's sort of in between med school and being a proper resident like you would in America. But back when I was in med school, I actually used to take a lot of time off just to make videos. So everyone kind of thinks that med school is this like really hard slog. But if you can study for your exams efficiently and you know how to play the game, then you realize that actually if I'm on my cardiology placement, really there's a handful of things I want to get out of this on a given day. I want to sort of specifically find an area that I'm weak on. I want to work on that. Kind of like the 10,000 hours of purposeful practice where you're actively working on your weaknesses rather than just kind of practicing a song that you know already. And so what a lot of medical students, I think, make the mistake of doing is they just spend way too much time in the hospitals not actively learning and just hoping that stuff will just enter their system via osmosis or whatever. Whereas my thing and a few of my friends, we were like, right, we're going to go in for 2 hours. We're going to go in with a very distinct aim. We're going to do the thing. And then we're going to go sit in the doctor's common room and edit a video or whatever. So that was how I used to do it in med school. Whereas I think a lot of people have this idea of like, oh, it must be so hard. But now that I'm kind of working full time, it's a little bit more tricky because I physically can't, not go to work or can't come home early. But I find that there's a technique that I call productive downtime, which is that when I'm at work, let's say I've just seen a patient and I've taken their bloods and I've got to wait an hour for the bloods to come back. And let's say that there's no emergencies happening there and then that need my immediate attention. For that hour, I'm just kind of sitting on the ward in front of the computer and just kind of doing nothing. And so why not open up Notion or open up Evernote web app and start kind of planning out a video? And so when I'm at work from 8 till 5 or sometimes 8 in the morning till 9 in the evening, I get, these little moments help me plan out videos a lot more than I would be able to do if I treated my work as this kind of 13-hour block where I physically couldn't do anything else.
Oh, I like that. Because you still, everyone has a lunch break.
Exactly. Yeah. Lunch break as well.
I wonder, do you think that people just don't want that freedom? Like they want the idea of it, but they don't want to do the work for it?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this a fair bit. I think, so there's an analogy I came across on the Hustle podcast, My First Million. I don't know if you're familiar with that. There's this daily newsletter called The Hustle, which is like a tech newsletter, and they've got this podcast, which is very good, called My First Million, about how people made their first million, which you should feature on, by the way, because you'd have a good story to tell. But they were interviewing some. I think they might have been interviewing Ariana Huffington, anyways, Ariana someone, and they came across the analogy of window openers versus door knockers, and it's a bit weird, but like the window openers are the ones who kind of look through a window and they see their expected outcome on the other side, and then they step through the window. Whereas the door knockers are the ones who would see a closed door and they would just knock on it, open the door and see what's on the other side without knowing in advance. And the theory was that increasingly most of the rewards in the modern day go to the door people as opposed to the window people. And when it comes to things like creating content on the internet or starting a business, it's very much a door situation. Like, even though you've got this Gary Vaynerchuk playbook of just release free content and monetize your audience over time, even though you've got that playbook, it's by no means a certainty. And therefore, in order to put in the grind, you have to be open to not knowing what's on the other side. And I think the question I get, I put out a video last week talking about kind of various sources of passive income, and that led to a huge influx of emails from people being like, dear sir, please guide me on step by step exactly what I should do to get to where you are. And I wasn't really sure how to reply to these guys, because I was like, well, that's not really the point. The point is you have to have the faith and the consistency to do the thing without necessarily knowing what exactly on the other side.
Oh, I love that, man. I love that. I think also, you really stuck with me. It's also find the thing that you enjoy getting stuck with. Like this type of work is work. I mean, you're literally getting paid to share and make videos and explore life and things that you're interested in.
Maybe, it's absolutely obscene. I don't know how it happened.
Yes,
but.
I say it all the time. Like, I don't know how I got so lucky that I get paid to like promote awesome products. Like, I can't believe that's our business.
Yeah, and that's absolutely mental.
It is mental. Oh, I'm going to use that word from now on. I have been using the word big dicking, which some people love, but some people hate. I love it. It just basically says like people willing to face some fear, people willing to take a little risk.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have a big dick. That's like that's the joke
here.
in the story. Yeah. By the way, you're much taller than I would have guessed. Are you like 6? I don't know. You're like 5 meters. I don't know how to do the UK.
5 meters. I'm 182 centimeters, so just like 6 foot on the dot.
Yeah. You're taller than you look, man. Taller than I would expect.
I'm on a standing desk right now because I found that having the standing desk encourages me to keep my posture reasonable.
Definitely. Do you use a floor mat at all?
No. What's a floor mat? Dude. As in?
No. So I'll hook you up. Topo mats.
Topo mats.
So basically, it's not just a floor mat. We bought it for the entire office. It's called Topo. I think it's not Topo Design, but it's called Topo Mat. Okay. And it's got a little bubble in the middle of it. And I've actually found it changed my standing desk dramatically. Yeah, ergo-driven Topo Mat standing desk. And they're $99. It will be my treat to send you one. I'd love to send you one. And I know these guys. Incredible. They're awesome.
Sick. That would be great. They're out of stock on Amazon UK, unfortunately. So
I know the guys if I can find one. Anyways, I'll put it in my notes to get you. The other thing that I've been experimenting with that has dramatically changed my work is a treadmill desk.
Oh, you've got a treadmill desk?
Yeah. And so you can't get them in the States.
How does it work? Do you just walk on the treadmill or what?
Yeah, so we have 2 ways of setting it up. So one, I have the autonomous.ai or autonomous.nyc desk, which are like $300 up-down desks. And I think you can get them cheaper now, like Jarvis or otherwise. And so that's up and down. And then I use a thing called, I think it's Conquer treadmill desk. And you just slide it underneath, set it to speed 1. And I'm renting Airbnbs that are 50% off right now, so I'm not at home. But when I was at home or at the office, I was getting like 15, 20,000 steps a day. I've really enjoyed it. One thing I did do, kind of a hack that was an accidental hack, is that the cheapest standing desk that you can buy that's really easy to get and accessible is bicycle stands.
Bicycle stands?
Yeah. So I'm a cyclist and I have like a bike trainer at home. And you can buy a stand to put your Zwift, which is a bike game.
Okay.
Have you heard of Zwift?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's basically like a virtual world that you bike in. So while I'm biking, my little character I have a bald guy that's biking in the game. It's awesome. And so what most cyclists do is they have a stand they put their iPad on or tablet, so that you can watch it and adjust it while you're cycling. And so I use that for my standing desk because it's like $200 versus like a more expensive one. Plus, it's got wheels on it to really easily move around.
Oh, damn. I've got to get one of these treadmill things.
Dude, the treadmill just do not spend, well, at least in the States, it's $299. But I would go back and forth. I like the only thing with the treadmill desk is it takes up some space and you can move it because it's got wheels, but it's not crazy easy. So if you don't have a lot of room.
I guess it's not very aesthetic either.
But coming back to it, productivity and stuff like this, the 2 questions I was curious is, how did you find your niche or your voice around all these topics? Because I think that's something that a lot of us are trying to figure out. It's like, what do I talk about? If I want to do this content plan? And maybe walk us through, like, how did you get to the 600,000 subscribers in about 2 years?
Yeah. So, again, I was just following Gary Vee's playbook here. So essentially, the format is, the simple format is you start off really, really, really freaking niche, or niche as the Americans would call it. And then you expand your niche over time. So initially, I started making videos about how to pass this specific medical school entrance exam for people applying to 4 medical schools in the UK. There were only like 4 medical schools in the UK using this exam. And I made content about how to do well in that exam because I'd been tutoring it for years with my side company. And then I was like, okay, so that was one tiny target market. Then I sort of expanded out a bit. I was like, okay, I then started making videos on medical school interview prep. And then that targets everyone who's applying to med school in the UK because it's all the same kind of stuff that you learn. And I had some specific videos about Oxford and Cambridge because they've got weird scientific kind of interview processes. And then I was like, okay, so I've got this niche of people who are kind of medical school applicants applying to some of these top universities. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can now start vlogging life as a Cambridge medical student because, Cambridge is famously a good university and this is the sort of content these people would want to see. And then, so that was a very, very niche audience. And then over time, I was like, okay, I need to make a video that now encompasses students in general. So I made a video about kind of my desk setup for that I use as a student. And then I made some videos on how to study for exams in general. And I was like, okay, cool. Now we've got the student market. Then the one video that made my channel take off completely was a video about how I take notes on my iPad Pro. So that was like from a student's perspective, but it got the tech crowd in. And then suddenly, like basically overnight, my channel transformed from a entirely student-focused channel to a sort of half student, half tech. And I was like, yes, this is the dream, because that was kind of where I wanted to get to ultimately. But I knew that I had to start off very, very, very niche, because if you're just making a YouTube video for the first time, you can't just make a video about 10 productivity tips because no one cares. There's a guy actually called Shu Omi who recently I discovered. He's on about like 3,000 subscribers. He's made a handful of videos. He's been doing YouTube for about a year now. And I was looking through his channel just because I wanted to test this hypothesis. And his initial videos were how to brew a matcha tea latte and how to be more productive at work and stuff. So very, very general, broad audience. And then a few months ago, he started making really, really specific videos about Rome research and like fully nerding out on it to the level where his videos are some of the best on the internet about Rome research, just because no one else was doing that. And I DM'd him on Twitter being like, bro, I've got a theory that your channel only started to take off once you started making these Rome videos. And he was like, yeah, I had basically 0 views before then. And I suspect it's the fact that he was now targeting a very niche audience of tech early adopters who care about note-taking on Rome, as opposed to everyone who cares about how to make a matcha tea latte or how to be more productive. And so I think once you start off niche, you can then expand out over time, which is the Gary Vee model.
It's the Ali Abdaal model. I love it, man. I'm going to speak it to the world. That's my job here. So nice. I love the niche approach. The two things I want to understand a little bit more is, how do you structure your videos? Like, because like your first videos, actually, I watched your first videos, like the first one you ever made and a few of those other earliest ones. They're pretty similar to today. It's actually, I thought it'd be like horribly worse, but they're pretty similar. So I am curious, how do you think and how do you structure your videos? And then the other side of that is that your marketing is really, everyone's like niche marketing. You literally did it. And so I guess how much time do you actually think about marketing or promoting? Because I think a lot of people have, I've put out a video, here's my productivity hacks, and it just kind of dies in the water. So I'm curious how you think about marketing with your video.
Yeah, so to answer the second one first, I don't really think about marketing at all. Like, I don't really know what marketing means in terms of on the video front. The way I think of it is essentially all I want to do is put out 1 or 2 or 3 decent videos a week. And then over time, I just hope that the algorithm or the gods or whatever will ultimately reward me, because that's kind of what the point of the YouTube algorithm is. It's to surface the right video to the right viewer at the right time. And so if I can actually make decent content, then the marketing almost takes care of itself, at least on YouTube. And doing things like collaborations and stuff helps. And actually the first kind of big boost that my channel had was from doing a collaboration. But I think there is a lot to be said for just kind of putting your head down and putting in the work to just kind of make a quality product and trust that, if you build it, they will come, famously, which seems to not really apply anymore. Like, people have different opinions on this. But then in terms of how I think about the videos, honestly, I just imitate other people. So at the start, I told myself I want to be the Peter McKinnon of studying. And so I tried to model my videos based on his, and like all of my vlogs about life as a Cambridge Met student were essentially rip-offs of his, kind of having a bit of A-roll where you talk to the camera and then switching to 100 frames per second so you can have slow motion B-roll with a bit like music in the background. And through that imitation over time, I feel I sort of developed my own style, because his style is very kind of high energy and sort of charismatic. I feel mine is a bit more nerdy, a bit more, I'd like to think, thoughtful. And so I've sort of Peter McKinnon plus elements of my own personality. And then now the person who I'm trying to model in a way is Matt Diavella. He's a filmmaker. He's made a Netflix documentary about minimalism. All of his videos are like the gold standard of a cinematic, decent YouTube video, which I guess isn't even really a YouTube video, because it's like basically a film / mini documentary in 10 minutes.
It's entertaining.
And so, yeah, absolutely. And so I'm learning a lot from him about, okay, cool. He's switching up the A-roll there. He's using a voiceover there. He's using an overhead camera there. And so I've started imitating aspects of that. And I think the more you imitate, the more you kind of develop your own style over time.
Dude, the Ali Abdaal model. The Ali Abdaal model is going to be big. One thing with what you're saying, how much time are you spending learning? How much time a week are you actually, because you do create, right? I think, you do put 2 videos out a week?
Yeah, 2 or 3 these days in lockdown, otherwise 1.
And then, but you're watching videos, you're reading books, you're trying new tools. How much time do you spend around that?
I mean, in fairness, this is pretty much the only thing I do with my time. So like I'd come home from work and then I will get a takeaway because previously I used to think that cooking was a waste of time, but now I'm trying to get into cooking more. And I just spend all evening either making a video or planning a video or watching other videos with an intent to learn from them. And then when I'm driving in the car each day, I'd be listening to podcasts at double speed, including yours, which is how I listen to lots of episodes of your podcast. And I think there's a lot to be gained because your podcast isn't specifically about how to grow on YouTube, but there's still so much insight that people can learn about how to grow on YouTube from just knowing generally good marketing tips. And there was there was a few interviews that you did with guys about how they weren't using their mailing list properly and how they should be doing this, that, the other. And they were like, oh my God, yeah, you're totally right. And I was like, oh, I can actually apply this to my own mailing list or to my own YouTube channel in a different sort of way. So I guess it's constant learning. But again, like I enjoy it. Like I'd rather listen to a podcast in the car than listen to music. And so I think I've been really lucky to stumble into this field where all of the stuff that's associated with it is stuff that I find quite fun anyway.
How do you structure your videos? And it's interesting because you basically make videos which it seems like you enjoy, or sounds like you do, and you have a certain hobby that you enjoy, and then you put those together, and you just do it every week. You make it too simple. You make this whole, like, should everyone just start at sendfox.com newsletter or YouTube? Should everyone just copy you in the Ali Abdaal model?
I think so. I think the trick is actually just to find a few repeatable pieces of content that you can do. Like TV shows get big because, once you've figured out the formula, you then repeat the formula and you just kind of churn out over time. And I think the difficulty with being a creator of any sort is if you're trying to come up with original stuff each week. Again, Gary Vaynerchuk would say...
Just say Ali Abdaal says it.
Document, don't create. And so I document, I don't create. And everything I do is just based on documentation. So a few months ago, I was thinking, okay, I feel like my channel's getting a bit stale. I've been repeating a lot of content recently. What's something new I can do? And then I realized, I should do this series called Book Club, where I summarize highlights and insights from popular nonfiction books. And I was like, this is incredible, because if I do it once, I've got at least 150 books in my Kindle library that I'd be able to talk about for an hour. So I can just turn those into videos. Now that's 150 videos sorted. So that's basically 10 years worth of content just off this one idea that I can make this a repeatable series. And so I think when it comes to people starting out anything for the first time, I think thinking hard about what can you do to make the process as repeatable as possible, because you don't want to have to think about coming up with a new video idea every week, because that would just be a total drag.
Well, I think it's interesting that you noticed you were getting stale. You felt it. And I think one thing that maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit is that you didn't just make the same video. Like, your older videos do look different. You do have to say, how can I keep improving this? And I think that's sometimes even with myself, I'm like, all right, this is it. Just keep, and it's like, no, that's exactly the time that you probably have to be a little bit aware and say, all right, how do I just keep iterating and improving each week or each month or whatever, whenever you notice that.
Yeah. And like the way I sometimes think of this is sort of like building a moat. And this is, again, a startup analogy. Like, what's the moat that you're building around your own company, which would make other, quote, competitors find it hard to kind of take your customers. And if you apply that theory to YouTube, it doesn't quite translate, because in YouTube, it's not really competitors. It's more like, in a way, on YouTube, the rising tide lifts all the boats. Like, if there's another productivity student channel that pops up, chances are my videos will get recommended on theirs and vice versa. So in a way, we'll both kind of cross-pollinate one another. But the way that I think of it on YouTube is, okay, I'm all for encouraging people to start their own channels and stuff, but I kind of want to be the gold standard YouTube channel in my niche of productivity, student, medical type stuff. And so what can I do every week, every month to push that boundary? And one very easy way of doing it is, once you start making money, you can then reinvest that money into buying fancier cameras. And fancier cameras are a very easy way to improve your video quality. And so, for example, I've got like a $7,000 camera setup right now. That's the sort of thing.
7,000?
Yeah. And that's the sort of thing that any other student wanting to get into YouTube will think, okay, I want to start a YouTube channel, but there's no way I can afford that, which is ideal. But people like Matt Duvella and Thomas Frank, they're using Canon C200s, which are $15,000 cinema cameras. Peter McKinnon's now using a Red camera, which is like $35,000. MKBHD uses a $50,000 camera setup. Like, there is still more to be done in the production value sphere. But in a way, it's a very easy way to continuously be pushing the bar because A, it's really fun just nerding out about tech. And B, once you've got that privilege where you can afford this stuff and call it a business expense, you're building the moat even further around your content. Hiring team members is another one that I've been learning a lot about recently because now I can churn out 3 videos a week without me having to edit them. Whereas again, someone new trying to join the same space would find it a lot harder to do that. So that's kind of how I think about it these days. Like, how do I consistently make myself the gold standard?
Dude, you're so good. The Ali Abdaal, dude. That is the new program people need to subscribe to. It's funny. It's funny where our minds go. And I love tech. That's why both of us do this stuff. I mean, it's what we love. And I feel very blessed for that. When I started making money on YouTube and, you're with all your content creation, you're like, your first thought was making a nicer camera. My first thought is, oh, how can I spend that on marketing?
Oh, nice. But I guess it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Like, increasing production value of your videos is in a way boosting your marketing.
No. I think they're both great. I didn't even think of it as a differentiator, right? But it is like a lot of my videos look like shit. I look at some of these older ones, and so I do have a Sony 6400 coming in a few days. Nice. And so but that, it's my gateway drug. And I think a lot of people, honestly, your iPhones, a lot of the first ones on YouTube that I started doing, I just got on my phone. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. The thing that I had a big realization for why I stopped doing YouTube 2 years ago was that I made it a production. Like, I had to find this filmmaker, my buddy Brandon, who I love, and he now runs AppSumo Video. But he'd be like, all right, we have to get a video, and we have to do this, and we have to do all these things. And I was like, man, all that stuff stops me from what I want to do, which is just share. And so I think it's also figuring out which part is holding back from it. Right. And so now that I'm doing it, I'm like, you know what if I just, instead of this webcam, I get a nicer camera that makes it a little bit easier. And it's been fun to nerd out on all the new software for video, like Ecamm and StreamYard. And, you sent me your scenes, which I do appreciate. And, ScreenFlow. I don't know. It's just, it has been interesting, but I think sometimes we jump to the toys. And I think part of it has been rewarding to build up. Right. Versus just like assume that, oh, let me buy this thing. And like, I want to buy the new laptop for Apple and I can afford it. But I said, all right, you have to get everything on your checklist done this week.
Nice.
And I like that work reward ratio.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's kind of nice because like if we think about how a YouTube channel grows, in a way, everyone's journey on YouTube is their own. It's their own kind of unique experience. And so when you start off with like 0 subscribers, every new subscriber you get, it's like such a joyful feeling. Like, oh my God, I'm now on 18 subscribers. Yes, I can't believe there's 18 people in the world who want to watch my videos. And then as you upgrade your camera setup, you can, in a way, you feel yourself leveling up. And I think there's something I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is I think there are so many ways in which life is actually like a video game. And I think that leveling up in the video game of life is one of the most satisfying things that we can do. So whether it's me kind of just like managing to learn a new song on the piano or upgrading my camera setup, it's all part of leveling up. But my point is that that's like an individual journey. And so if you took someone who was a brand new YouTuber and put them in MKBHD's $50,000 studio, they probably wouldn't know what to do with it because that's not the level they're pitching at. Whereas you start off with your iPhone, you get an A6400, you get an A7 III, you get a cinema camera. Over time, you realize you spent $100,000 on cameras. But you're leveling up as you go along. And I think that's one of the really satisfying parts of it.
When's your book coming out?
I don't know, man.
You need to put a book out. Dude, the Ali Abdaal way. Plus, I do think it does. We are biased with luck, I would say. I don't know your story, but I had parents. My dad was in tech. My mom was really persistent. But at the end of the day, you have to put in the work to get these things and to be the person, no matter what upbringing you had. Some of us did have luck with where we were born, but it is a lot of effort. Because I talked with Seth's Bike Hacks. He's the #1 bike YouTuber.
Oh, okay.
You ever watch him?
No, I'm not familiar at all with BikeTube.
He makes his Seth's Bike Hacks. He makes phenomenal videos. It's a 1 million subscribed plus channel about mountain biking. But I interviewed him 2 years ago, and my first, when I first thought, I was like, dude, I can't believe it. You're making lots of money making bike videos.
Yeah.
And he was a former filmmaker. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me is like, how much time do you think I'm biking and how much time do you think I'm actually working on these videos?
Yeah.
And obviously I think probably he's hired now and things like that, but it really stuck with me. It's that, we're, as a content creator, you're only seeing the dish. They don't necessarily see what's in the kitchen. So two things with you around that I want to know more about is how do you structure your videos? Because they're simple. They're beautifully simple. And I'm learning from you. I watch your video. I'm like, I want to keep watching. I like how it's structured. It doesn't seem overly complicated, but it's enticing me as a viewer. So I wanted to learn more about that. And also how you've started building out your team and now making it from a hobby to a business. So let's do part 1 and then part 2.
Okay. So part 1, structuring videos. So this is something I'm actively trying to get better at. Before, the way I would structure my videos is I would imagine, okay, let's say I'm sort of in real life, I'm trying to teach someone how to do this thing because most of my videos are educational rather than entertaining. And so the objective is to teach someone something. And so I kind of think in my head, okay, how would I teach this in real life? And what are the reasonable chunks that I can split this up into? And if at all possible, I will split everything into 3, into a list of 3. Somehow it's got to be done. So like a few months ago, I made a new Skillshare class about how to study for exams. And I spent like a solid 3 hours with this list of 50 videos thinking, right, I need to shoehorn all of these into a 3-part structure. Then I was like, oh, fantastic. Right, we've got understanding, memorizing, and focus. And that is the 3-part structure. And it's a little bit contrived in some parts, like some bits may not necessarily, but if you say, right, hey, guys, here is a 3-part structure to how to study for your exams, study, understand, memorize, focus, people will know what you're talking about. And so I think about the 3-part structure quite a lot. But that's only kind of level 1 of how to make a good video. Level 2 of how to make a good video is something I'm actively working on now, which is how do you do the same thing, but how do you turn it into a compelling story? Because we all grow up and love listening and hearing stories. And a lot of the biggest YouTube channels are successful because they manage to have this kind of story-like connection with the viewer. And so I'm in the process of this 8-week sort of live over Zoom course on how to grow a YouTube channel called Video Labs. That was like a $2,000 investment. And I was like, you know what, this has got to be done. And a big part of it is this thing of how do you craft a more compelling video? How do you tell more of a story? So now we're looking at things like different structures of stories, like the 3-act structure and the hero's journey. And that was where I came across A Million Miles in 1,000 Years. That was one of the recommended reading from this course about how to tell a compelling story. And there's another book I'm reading like at the moment called Story Worthy, which is by this guy called Matthew Dix. And he's a guy, like apparently I had no idea this was a thing, but there are these storytelling competitions that happen everywhere in the world. They're called like Grand Slams, and you get people going up without any notes, telling a story, and they get rated on how good their story is. And this is like a whole industry that I just never before heard about until I started reading this book by Matthew Dix called Story Worthy. And one of the things he says in that, which I've started doing for the last 2 days, and I hope to continue for the next year, is this thing that he calls homework for life. And his homework for life is that every day, at the end of the day, you spend 5 minutes thinking about what is the most story-worthy component of my day today. And you write that down in like an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheet or something. I've started writing mine in Notion, obviously. And the point of that is that it makes you notice much more where the stories are in your life. And so when it comes to calling on a story, you'd be like, oh, actually, I had that issue with this patient who only spoke Romanian. Therefore, I had to explain a 3rd-degree perineal tear after childbirth via a translator on the phone because she only spoke Romanian. That's an interesting story-worthy moment, but that's something that happened to me yesterday. But I wouldn't have thought of it. I wouldn't have given it a second thought had I not been doing this homework for life. And now as sort of I'm on like chapter 4 out of like 10 in the book, and he's now talking about, okay, so we've got this raw component, we've got this snippet that might make a good story. How do we craft it into a compelling narrative? And I'm not sure what's coming up next. So this is an area that I'm really trying hard to get better at, because storytelling isn't just for YouTube videos. Like, if you can tell a good story, you're a better podcast guest, you're a better friend, you're a better dating partner. Everything in life gets better when you can tell a compelling story. And so when I discovered this book like 2 nights ago, I was like, oh my God, like I literally had tears in my eyes as to how much my mind was blown by this stuff. So hopefully that answers the question of how do I craft my videos. Like initially starting off just like structuring it like an essay or like a teaching session would be, but now really thinking about what's the story that we're telling, who is the hero, what's their conflict, what do they ultimately want, and all that.
And so do you use a teleprompter, or do you script out every single thing? Like I'm trying to keep experimenting and find out what works for me. I've noticed some of the ones that have actually been the most well received. It's me just holding the iPhone and talking story. And I'm like, all right, that's interesting that those are the ones that are most popular or the audience resonates with. So I'm really curious for yours.
Yeah, I don't use a teleprompter, but I'm kind of experimenting with it a little bit more. I tend to go with bullet points. I bullet point my 3-part structure, and I vaguely know in my head what I'm going to say, and then I tend to mostly freestyle it, unless it's kind of a narrative video or a video that has lots of scientific evidence in it. In which case, okay, fine, I need to have the studies in front of me so I can cite from them without kind of being factually wrong. But otherwise, I've also noticed that the videos where I go a little bit more off-piste, where I'm open to kind of being a little bit weird on camera or like telling a lame joke or something, like where I'm more myself, those are the videos that tend to resonate more. And that was like a really good realization, because when I first got into YouTube, I was really worried because I'm like a massive nerd and into tech and into studying and stuff. And I didn't really have like this effusive, charismatic personality that I thought YouTubers had to have. And so I was really worried about this. I was like, okay, how do I succeed on YouTube? And then I realized over time that actually we all have our own unique selves. We all have our own unique quirks. And the more we let those come out on camera, the more it gives people another reason why they might like us. And sure, I might not be everyone's cup of tea. Your vibe might not be everyone's cup of tea, but that's fine. You know, the people that follow you will love you even more because you're being unapologetically yourself rather than trying to put on a more kind of produced persona.
Yeah. And so your videos from, like, let's just take a month ago, you have an outline and you kind of look at that outline while you talk to the camera.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there anything else like?
Not really. So again, this is a place where Notion has actually helped. So on Notion, you can create templates. So we've created this new video template. And in the video template, the first question is, what is the title? The second question is, what is the thumbnail? Because those are the two sort of starting points. Next question is, what is the hook? So what is the first kind of 10 seconds of the video going to be that hooks the audience? Next question is, what's the main body? And the final question is, how are we then going to point them to another video or another playlist? Because the way the YouTube algorithm works is that it rewards your videos if they encourage people to stay on the platform for longer. And so all of this stuff about, hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I really hope you found that useful. Please leave a comment down below. Please make sure to like, subscribe. That is not very good, because what it's doing is it's telling people the video's over and you can now leave. Whereas what we should be doing, and there's loads of kind of numbers behind this, as I've learned from these video creators guy, what we should be doing is we should be directly being like, all right, guys, if you enjoyed this video about what's on my Mac, here is a video over here, which is about what's on my iPad. So click on that and I'll see you on the other side. That's it. No like, comment, subscribe, none of that kind of BS that used to be big on YouTube in 2015, because everyone knows what liking, commenting, and subscribing is on YouTube now. Instead, we want to point them to the next video that they're going to watch. And so with my Notion template, that is filled out. So every time I make a video, I am forced to think, right, what is the 10 seconds that's going to hook their attention? And what is the final 20 seconds that's going to make them click on another video? So that's another way that I kind of use the app to kind of encourage the right kind of moves.
Dude, you're so fucking cool. I love this stuff, man. That's awesome.
It's so nice to be able to nerd out about this stuff to someone, because most people in real life don't really care.
No, well, so. Last night we were having dinner outside of the patio, and there was all these crypto guys there, and we are talking about the new crypto fork and the halvening and all this stuff. And
yeah,
growing up in Silicon Valley, that's just normal. That's just what you talk about at every meal. And I live in Austin, Texas, so that's not as common, and it is relieving. It's like, I'm like, you nerds. And I was like, that's me too. So
yeah.
I agree. One thing that I started doing, and this is probably YouTube 101, is it started putting up those end screens. I didn't even know about it. And so what it does for the people listening, if you do have a YouTube channel, for all of your videos, you just go into the details, click end screen, and it can auto add a thing at the end that's like, it'll have a subscribe thing and have those other videos. I kind of thought they would just do that automatically. I'm a little surprised I have to go add that. So I went to my top 10 videos and just threw those on to direct them to another one. But I love your idea too. At the end of my videos, say, if you love this video, here's the one to actually go check out versus letting YouTube
when you
decide.
physically point at the end screen, and then when you add the end screen, you add it where your finger is pointing. Just this is the stuff that I've been learning from this Video Labs course, because they've got like thousands of creators they've worked with. They've run the numbers on this, and they've said that a sort of click-through rate on end screens is the single biggest predictor of how many views your video is going to get. So if you can, A, your objective is to get people to the end, which forces you to craft a compelling video. And B, your objective is to give them a good sales pitch for the next video that they should watch. And if you can do those things, if you can up that click-through rate on end screen, that is the thing that's going to make the algorithm pop for you.
I love the structure there. And it's not, I think a lot of us, I generally, what motivates you or what tools do you use? At the end of the day, it's pen and paper. And, what you're doing, which I admire and is inspiring for me, is that you're still improving it. You didn't make the videos and say, all right, I stopped. That was good. You're like, all right, well, what's my next level up in these productions? And maybe you recognize it or maybe you don't. How have you approached that with the business side, right? You said you have 3 people helping you. And so how has that evolved from, just the Ali show to the Ali empire?
So that's been so interesting. So bit of backstory. So when I was in my second year of university, I started a company aimed at tutoring med school applicants for med school exams. Pretty standard stuff. It's basically what every entrepreneurial Asian in the UK does when they get to med school. They realize, hang on, I want to make a business. I'll make a business teaching other people how to get where I am. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. I think the thing that I had that sort of differentiated me at the time in 2013 was that I'd been doing freelance web design since like the age of 12. And so I knew how to make a pretty website. And at the time, it was a lot harder to make a pretty looking website than it is now. Like Squarespace wasn't a thing back in the day. You had to kind of hack around with a WordPress theme for absolutely ages before it looked pretty. Anyway, so I had this business and it's still running. It's been going for the last like 7 years. But it was really fun for the first 3 years of running it because we just kept growing every year. But then it very quickly got to a point where I couldn't physically teach courses on the weekends anymore because we were getting 2,000 students a year and my time was being actively limited because I was still going through med school. So then it was a case of trying to hire people. And so I found my friends who worked with me and got them to teach some courses. And I always had this real fear of delegation. Like I would end up answering all the emails myself, doing everything for the business myself, because I was like, oh, well, no one can do it better than I can. And I've been learning web design for 10 years. Like, what have you been doing, mate? And so I made a load of mistakes running that business. And so when this YouTube thing started getting big and I read The E-Myth Revisited about kind of this, whereas before I'd been like, management, who cares about that? It's all, what's, this HR bullshit, like what's going on? Whereas now I'm like, okay, this is a skill. This is something I need to improve. And so initially it started out with this guy called Christian, who's now basically a full-time editor. He reached out to me and there's this guy who's sort of been a bit of a mentor to me. And he was saying that, look, your revenues are now at the point where you can just about manage a full-time employee. If you take someone else on, this is the point where you should do it because you'll notice your output can double or triple just by having someone else on board. And at the start, I was like, oh, but I can't really afford it. This is really expensive. What's going on? He was like, no, trust me. Just do it. Just try it for 3 months and see what happens. And I tried it. And after a month, I was like, oh my God, this is actually the dream. Because now I don't have to edit my videos anymore. And then the next guy just kind of emailed me out of the blue saying, hey, I'm a freelance writer. He also graduated from Cambridge and he was looking for a job because he wants to get into journalism. So he was like, hey, do you have any work that needs doing? I said, oh, actually, now that you mention it, I want to start this book club series I could do with someone to help compile interviews like this one into snippets and kind of write scripts. So initially he started off working 1 day a week. And that was reasonable, but then kind of coronavirus happened and he lost his other jobs. So I just sort of kind of took the plunge and I was like, you know what, he was doing such a great job that it would be nice to have him as a full-timer. So now he's on full-time. So now we've got Christian and Angus, these 2 guys. And a few weeks ago, I hired someone to be my kind of executive assistant, which is how I came across your video from like 3 years ago, talking about how to work with an EA. So I watched that extensively and like started reading some books about it. So it's been a really interesting journey of sort of dabbling in this business stuff, but from the perspective of having failed at it once before and been a terrible manager to now trying to be someone who's better at leading a team.
What do you think most people are making mistakes on, or what's the thing that people could do better with teams? Because at the end of the day, one thing that, our company has around 50 people and we do, 8 figures in revenue. I can't do it by myself. Zuckerberg and Facebook has 50,000 people and they have like 3 websites. And so it's either going to be software or people. And I think a lot of people kind of miss out on that. So, I mean, what are some of the takeaways that you would do for people wanting to do it as well?
So I don't really know. Like, I think I'm still very much a beginner in this kind of team kind of journey. The thing that I've just been recommending everyone, like every YouTuber of a certain size that I know would be able to support an editor is like, just get someone to edit your videos because it frees up your own time to do the things which are high leverage for you, i.e. coming up with new content and strategizing and filming rather than editing. Because we all think, oh, no one can edit like I do. My style is unique. But actually, if you really broke it down and made a few screencasts, you realize that actually your style isn't as unique as you think, and anyone can really edit your videos. It's not that hard. But I'd be curious to learn from you in this regard. So one thing that I struggled with at the beginning was this idea of sort of keeping tabs on what my team's doing. Like a friend of mine said that, if you've got a remote employee, you've got to get them to install Hubstaff time tracking and take screenshots.
No.
And I was just like, hell no, that seems like the worst thing ever. But then in the back of my mind, every week I'd think, oh damn, I don't know if Christian's actually been doing the 40 hours that he's getting the job done, but I don't know if he's doing stuff. I just don't know. So that used to be a big source of stress for my life. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, I'm happy that's a little bit of the world I've been in for years, and I think I've made a lot of mistakes and done some things really well. You remind me of my mom. Not that you look like her or are her in any way, but every week, literally every week, especially with the coronavirus, she's like, "How do you know they're working? If they're working from home, how do you know?" And I'm like, "Shut up." No, I don't. I never said it to my mom, but she says it every week. She's like, "Do you trust them?" And so, I think Derek Sivers said a thing a long time ago, which I always love, which is trust but verify. And I think that's really a great approach in terms of running a company. And so, a few different things that I can recommend for you. Have you read Ricardo Semler's books?
No, I've never heard of him.
Oh, fuck, dude. This guy,
sick.
Big dick. He's a big dicker. Not literally, but he's a big dicker. Yeah, so him, and then the other book I'd recommend you reading is called Mastering the Rockefeller Habits.
Oh, so, okay.
These are books on scale. So this is now that you've got something working. And I think what problem is people read them when they don't have shit and they think that's going to fix the problem. And I'm like, no, you got to start doing the work. But there's not actually a lot of great content out there about what happens when it gets going. And so from those two books, with Ricardo Semler, he's got a book called Maverick. That's the one I'd recommend. His other book is just as good. I'd read them both. But Maverick, okay. I read it years ago and I still think about it, which is he got the fuck out of the business. And he's like, and he had they have a boring business. They make like parts for boats or something, or like washing machine parts. And so he really talks about how he really stepped out. And one thing that stuck with me is like Eamon is the guy that we've brought on to run AppSumo, and he is 5x the business, 6x.
Wow.
6 to 7x the business with his team and by himself with support. And I've never told him what to do. Okay. And that's what Ricardo Semler said. He's like, if you ever tell them what to do and you say, you have to do this because I'm the boss, you've lost. And so in the 7 or 8 years that we've been together, maybe 6, I've never said this has to happen. And it was interesting because it's kind of counterintuitive. You're like, well, I'm in charge. It's this company. But if you do that, you've taken away the power of them wanting to run the business like it is the run, which it is, and giving him that empowerment. That's true empowerment. But that also comes at a cost, right? Where you have to be willing to say, you're in charge. So that's one thing. In terms of Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, I don't remember a lot of details of the book, but it had a lot of good structures and formats for scale.
Great. I've just bought it. It's arriving on Monday.
Dude, but that and Maverick is a fucking game changer. The other thing, I did put out a video. Did you watch that video? It was like how I run an 8-figure company.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, so it is on YouTube. And I don't know if we put it out as a podcast, but let me find it. You know what's funny about this video? Oh, okay. Found it. Yeah. So I would watch that video. The funny thing is that video was originally going to be a productivity video. Like, here's how to type in Gmail and here's how to do this. And I was thinking that's not really unique. And there's more than enough of those out there. But I think there's some structure and things that you can't really learn from a lot of 8 or 9-figure companies. There's just not a lot of information out there. And so that is some of the exact things that I'm doing in running the business. I'd say in terms of the trust thing, because the way that I've seen hiring is there's 3 phases of hiring. You hire just someone that is a body. Okay. And you're just like, hey, you think you could do it? All right, figure it out. Then there's someone who's like smart. And then you have someone who's the expert. And what the problem is that most times when we start out, we don't have money. So we start with level 1. And then over time, what I've observed is you got to hire level 3 people. Right. And level 3 people are coming to you and saying, like right now we're hiring a video editor. It's like you teach me how to make the videos. Because if I'm teaching you, I don't know what you do here. And so it's really, how do you surround yourself with people that not only are level 3 experts, they love doing that stuff. Right? Mitchell on the Dork team, he loves being an executive producer. That's what he loves. And I'm like, well, I love being the voice.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've noticed for hiring, especially recently, and this is something I've noticed for who's the best people I've hired, they've applied to work with me in a different way.
Okay, what do you mean?
So Eamon, who runs AppSumo, he didn't just send me his resume. He made a 1-minute fun video 6 years ago. He's like, yo, dog, Noah, AppSumo, you like tacos. I love tacos. And it was a really fun video. Mitchell, who now runs all of Dork and has a great job. I think he likes working with me most of the time. He volunteered at a charity bike ride that we put on. He just said, hey, I'll help volunteer. I don't want anything. And from that, now he's running all of Dork. And across the board, Chad, my business partner, who I've now been with 9 years, Chad was my first customer at a previous company. And then when I started building AppSumo, he said, hey, if you want help, we had a great relationship. And he's like, and I said, hey, do you want to help me? He's like, yeah. And I said, I have no money. He's like, that's okay. I'll work for free.
Nice.
And so there's something about the people that are willing to put in the work, people that are willing to put in the 1% or be a little bit more different. And they stand out, just like Angus. And it sounds like, is it Chris?
Yeah, Christian.
And Christian, pardon me. And I think at the end of the day, one thing that I've thought about in terms of relationships, in terms of friends, in terms of work, it's one word. And the word is impressive. And so I consider you an impressive person. And the question that I then think about is like, of my friends who are impressive and of the people I work with who are impressive and in my relationship, is it impressive? And at the end of the day, the success of AppSumo is the people. We've been fortunate of the market that we're in and so forth, but we have the right people there as well, not just the right strategy. And I think a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, let me blame these people. And it's like, well, you're in charge. And so I think it's really interesting. And one of my favorite questions around this is the Netflix question. Have you read the Netflix deck, by the way?
No, I haven't.
Oh shit, dude. This is super good as you're growing a business. Read it. It's called the Netflix Culture Deck. It's 120 page. See, this is the kind of cool thing because I'm older than you. I know a few things like you whippersnappers. Yeah. So one of the things that it says, this is one of my favorite questions. There's 2 questions. One is from Netflix. One is kind of myself or from our team. How would you feel if this person went and worked at, oh no, there's 2 questions. I don't know which one's Netflix, which one's me. Number 1 is, how would you feel if this person that works with you goes to work for a competitor? And that's actually more for interviews, but you can, that's the question. And the one for your teammates is, if you were starting another company today, who would you take with you?
Oh, interesting.
And it's really fucking telling. You're like, well, I take that person's awesome. That person's awesome. That person sucks. And just being really intentional and kind of, I think one thing with hiring that's been an actual challenge is onboarding time. Because you expect people to be impressive day one, but you have to give them a little bit of chance to be impressive.
Yeah.
And that's a whole, skill and art. So you have to coach them, and how much should you be coaching? But at the end of the day, people should be impressing you pretty quickly with whatever specific skill set.
So in your how I run an 8-figure company, I noticed in your description, you've got your point number 1 is have a clear numerical goal with a deadline.
Always.
I wonder how would you apply that to kind of a YouTuber? So just for a bit of background, so like essentially our YouTube AdSense revenue scales directly with the number of views that we get. But then we also have a few other sources like Skillshare classes and some affiliate deals that bring in some chunk of the revenue. But I've never really been sure how to do it in terms of goals, because if you try and be like, hey, we want this video to hit 1 million views, that's so outside of anyone's control that how can that possibly be a goal? So have you got any thoughts on that front?
So there's a few different ways, and I did want to talk to you. So there's a few other topics I wanted to go over. One of them is how to get you to 1 million subscribers, which you'll eventually hit. But I would wonder, how do you get there? At the end of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know. When would you get to 1 million? Just if you just kept at the same pace.
So same pace, probably early next year.
Okay.
Possibly by end of the year. Yeah.
One thing I do want to highlight that you said, and I just want for people listening, and it was such a great point, was that just get to your first 100 videos. Do you remember saying that last time we chatted?
Yeah.
You wrote it down.
Videos are going to be crap. You just want to get to the first 100.
And I think that's the same thing with the goal. So
okay,
you can control how many videos you make. You can't control the views.
Yeah.
And so in business, I think there's 3 types of systems. I told you about them.
Yeah, you said. Oh yes, hang on. All right, let me try and remember this. So you said there were numerical goals. There were like systems goals, and there were process goals.
Yes, exactly. Progress goals.
Progress goals. That's the one.
Numerical system progress, and so they can be demotivating. And I was curious for you, and I'll walk you through exactly how we do this stuff. But I wonder, like, how did you know, does the million matter to you? Do you feel like the pressure helps or hurts? Because, you know, just to give you an example, with my podcast, I told you I wanted to get 100,000 downloads an episode. That was before I even started. I didn't realize that's literally like your top 10 in the world or top 20 in the world. I got to 25,000, and because I wasn't at 100, I gave up. And if I would have just stuck with it, I'd probably be at 50,000 today. Instead, I'm at 7. And it kind of taught me an interesting lesson that I think goals can be a good motivator, but they can also be depending on your goal, it could screw you. And so I think you have to find a goal that is genuinely of interest. And so lately for us, my original goal for my personal brand this year for the Dork World was monthly. It's called MARG, like margarita, monthly active reader growth.
Okay. So
what MARG means is that in my email list, in terms of people who open or click, I want that number to go up every month. I don't care if it's one person or 1,000 or 10,000. Because I thought about it. I was like, if I get 1 million people active, do I care? It's like, no. If I help one and it's each month just one more, that's cool. That's fine. And that kept me motivated. And so that's what I've done. But I've adjusted it a little bit because lately we've been doing more YouTube, and I've really enjoyed doing these other experiments. And so we've just called it monthly active audience goal, MAG. So our goal, I think right now we're at 175,000 across the channels that we care about. So LinkedIn, our Facebook group, organic traffic, email, active emails, and our YouTube subscribers.
Okay.
And SendFox, we're actually building this tracking into SendFox. So you could grow your audience and see how your audience number is doing. And so my only goal, I think we're going to keep the progress goal there instead of saying, how do I go from 200,000 to 2 million this year?
Yeah.
And so I think you have to decide which goal matters for you, or how, you know, or is it a systems goal? Hey, like for the gym thing we talked about early on, this is one that I was stuck with. And my buddy Adam from mybodytutor.com, who I work with, he said, you know, one year I wanted to get a 6-pack. And so I did it. One year I wanted to weigh 200 pounds of like bulk. I did it. And I went to him 2 years ago and I was like, man, I don't have a goal. And he's like, what? He's like, well, what do you really want? And I was like, I just want to go to the gym 3 times a week. That's a goal. And so and I thought of that because your videos, which is, I just want to put out 3 videos a week. So coming back to your situation, I think there's a few different things I would think about. And I learned this when I didn't get a job at Microsoft. So I got rejected from working there after being an intern, which is really, no one else got rejected except me. I think very few. But the interview said I was trying to get on the Xbox team, and I didn't play Xbox. I wasn't into it. So it wasn't really the smartest thing for me to decide. But he said one thing that stuck with me, and this was 10 years ago now. He said, the way that is the best way to work with other people is you give them, think of it like a football, soccer, or American football. You give them the destination.
Yeah.
And you give them the boundaries. And you let them play. And if they're not scoring, you get involved. Oh. And you coach them. You can coach them from the side. But if they're not scoring, get involved. Otherwise, let them score. Let those, those are the best people. The people that you want to hire are the ones that are going to want to figure those things out.
So you're saying because one thing I would love to be able to do is say to Angus, hey, Angus, we want to get a new book club video out every 3 weeks, and it's up to you to make that happen. And I feel like he would just kind of run with it pretty well, but I just haven't really, there's something about putting that out there that has just always felt very scary. And so I feel like I've had too much of like an overlord kind of putting my hand in from above, when he's probably just more than happy to kind of do his thing and give me a semi-finished product that I can just tweak.
So there's people that want to be, which parts do you want to be involved with? Do you want to be involved in the movie or involved in creating that show?
So I think in my ideal world, I'd spend my days reading, writing, and filming. So I would rather not write it if it can be avoided. But I want to be the guy sitting in front of the camera to sort of talk, essentially.
So one thing I've noticed with people when you're working with them, it's just all, at the end of the day, a lot of it's about expectation, right? And a lot of times, let me just take a step back. So the way that we're hiring a video editor, I'll just tell you our 4-step process. So the 4-step process is email us. So put out to the world that we're hiring. Email us. Step 1, email us with your LinkedIn in the body.
Yeah.
This is just basic. 50% of people can't get that right. They're gone. The next, and then we automatically send it to round 2 if they can follow that. Round 2 is for the video editing. Show us a video that you made that you're proud of, and show us someone else's video that you like their style of video with interviews. That's step 2. Step 3 is here is a video. Here's a raw video. Make it something that we'd want to put on our channel.
Nice.
And then step 4 is that if that's impressive, then we'll talk with them and hire them. And so it's just making it realistic. So I would say with Angus, is it clear? Why haven't you done it? It seems pretty straightforward, but it's like, Angus, here's the video. Here's what the expectation is. I'd like it done within 3 weeks. The one thing I want to caveat or just highlight is you originally said, hey, what about page views? I think what you have to be intentional of is figuring out goals that are controllable. So with Eamon at AppSumo, he has basically a revenue goal. Let's just say it's like X million. And then he's got 3 strategic initiatives or 3 KPIs, key performance indicators, goals. So the 3 KPIs is, I think it's base revenue, number of active partners, and active customer number.
Okay.
So core, we call it one's core, which is our core revenue number, and we're doing some new stuff. Active number of customers and active partners. And for the most part, I want to stay the fuck away from him. And I think, it's funny because in the past 5 years, I've really left him alone for 3 years, and I've been more involved for 2. And I think it's figuring out what I really love doing and where I could be the most helpful without slowing him down. Because, at the end of the day, I think people really thrive when they're their own boss. Like, I don't call anyone at our company employees. I don't want to be anyone's boss. I don't want anyone to be my boss. And
I feel very uncomfortable with those words as well.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I want everyone, I want everyone to be their own boss.
Okay.
The other thing that might help, and we can talk about the Angus example, besides setting expectation of saying, hey, here's what I want by this point, is just coming up with, and we, when you read these business books, sometimes they're like, what's your mission and what's your purpose and what's your vision?
Yeah.
I'm always like, that sounds like bullshit to me. It sounds like something I put on the wall and then I use to wipe my ass.
Yep.
And so I do think it's important to figure out what makes Ali Abdaal Inc. unique. What are Ali-isms? And those should be very specific to you and the way that you want your business to run. And I think that plus a vision is pretty fucking cool. And a vision is just like, where the fuck I want all this to go. Like, hey, I want to be the world's #1 educator on productivity, or I want to be the #1 educator for students. Whatever that is. Like, what would that be for you?
So at one point it was, I want to be the world's #1 medical educator. And then recently I kind of realized that that's not actually what I want. I think, I don't know, like how do you figure that out? Like,
yeah,
so I guess you're familiar with the parable of the Mexican fisherman.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
And I love Mexicans, and I love all of them.
Yeah.
They're so cool.
Yeah, I love fishermen as well. But I think I'm already in my Mexican fisherman zone where I can't believe that I get to do what I'm doing. And so it's really, I don't know. I was recently reading Michael Hyatt's The Vision Driven Leader. I was like, okay, everyone says you should have a vision. Let me try and figure this out. But even after reading that, I just couldn't really figure out what do I want my vision to be. Like, how much do you think about that? Like, what's your vision?
I think a vision has to be, at the end of the day, with all these things like goals and visions, it has to be genuine. And I hate when people say genuine. I'm like, what is genuine? It just has to be something that matters to you. I've had bullshit ones, and I think your vision could potentially change because maybe you reach your vision. But I will say, when I worked at Facebook, Mark's vision was to connect the world.
Okay.
That's a pretty
good vision.
That was a fucking big dick vision.
That's pretty cool.
It's super inspiring.
Yeah.
And I've thought about this a lot. I asked Mitchell 2 weeks ago, I was like, why are we doing any of this? Not just AppSumo and all this stuff. I'm like, why are we doing this? We're all going to die. Like, does it really matter? What does it matter? And I think what really inspires me and motivates me is just helping these underdogs. I like helping the fucking people that maybe don't get like the recognition, or the people making cool shit that just need a little bit of guidance. And if I can help everyone do that, pretty fucking cool. And so that motivates me. I think when I see people that not do it for me, but they do it for themselves in their own business, mostly around work. I'm not as interested in like the other pieces. I just think it's fucking great. So I asked my therapist years ago. I said, I have no vision.
Yeah.
I was like, I got no vision. I don't know if it's vision shit. He's like, well, what do you? And I'll ask what he asked you. It's like, what do you want to happen? What do you want to have happen in the next, let's say, year or a few years? What do you want to have happen with all the things you're doing?
Okay, right. So I've got to that. So I would like to continue making videos each week that inspire and educate people. I don't really care about entertaining, but if they're somewhat entertaining, then that would be quite nice as well. I'd like for that to continue to be a sustainable and kind of a highly profitable endeavor, just because that's kind of cool. And I'd like to. I'm big on transparency, so I really got a kick out of making this video about kind of how much I earn in a week from different sources, and so I love the idea of lifting the hood up and showing kind of the process underneath what's kind of going on, so that other people who want to do it for themselves, they have a sort of guiding light that helps them along the way. I suppose that's kind of what I want.
That's a vision.
Is it?
That's exactly what a vision is.
I was cringing really hard as I was saying it. I was like, oh God, this sounds like one of those bullshit visions.
No, a bullshit vision to me is like, I want to empower 1 million entrepreneurs. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, who cares? What about if you get 999,000? You going to be disappointed? A vision is something you want in the future. We have sumoisms. I'll tell you ours. Here's how you know your Ali-isms or your company isms matter, is that they help run the company when you're not around.
Okay.
So when people are talking, they're like, one of our things that matters is this. So some of the ones that we have, number 1, speed is number 1. Number 2, we can do anything. Number 3, time to magic. Number 4, test and invest. And number 5, good or great. Speed is number 1 is I want to move fucking fast. And so if we have to choose perfection over results, it's results. Number 2, we can do anything is a mindset. So when we're in meetings, one of my favorite things in a meeting is when someone says to me, I'm like, yo, can we do that? And they're like, yeah, we can do anything.
Nice.
We can do anything, but do we want to do everything? That's a whole another discussion.
Okay.
Number 3, time to magic. When people are consuming our information or when people are consuming our products, like how fast are they having magic?
Yep.
Across our products. Number 4, test, then invest. Is if we're wanting to do something, don't go balls deep, just test. And if it's great, invest. And then the last one that we have is good or great. And good or great is basically when you do some work or you work with some people or anything in the business, is it good or is it great? So I like, instead of saying, hey, have a good day, it should be, yo, have a great day. Or instead of good morning, have great morning. And I think it's just more, it's
great
a way to,
night.
Yeah, great night. And I can already tell it's getting dark over there. Your background's getting darker.
It's past sunset now.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome. On a Saturday night, you're hanging out with me and us. This is cool.
Of course. Yeah.
It's dope.
And so, I'd rather be.
Point being with the sumoisms or the Ali-isms, those should be ways of operating beyond you. So in terms of the goal for your business, I think you have to decide, there's 2 separate things. There's the main goal. So maybe it is subscribers, maybe it's revenue. Maybe it is just 3 videos a week. That's something that, do you have that in your business?
No, not really. No, it's just I've thought about these a lot, but I've never really come to a particular. I suppose if there is anything, it's total number of views, because that in a way drives everything else. It drives subscribers, it drives revenue ultimately. But it feels very wrong to be having total number of views as a KPI.
I think that I would trust yourself. What feels right?
What feels right is 2 or 3 videos a week and make them good. To be honest.
That's a great goal. That's a great goal.
Essentially, at every inflection point in growth of the YouTube channel, I kind of stopped to ask myself, okay, how am I feeling about this? And I realized that beyond 5,000 subscribers, the number itself stopped meaning anything at all. And having 500,000 subscribers feels emotionally no different to having 5,000 subscribers. Because at 5,000, at that point, you're like, oh, I can put out a Q&A and I'll get enough questions to make a video out of it. I can put out an Instagram story being like, hey guys, any ideas for a new video? And I will get enough responses for me to actually make a video off of that. And so, at 20,000, 50, 100, 500,000, I asked myself, does this feel any different to 5,000? And it really didn't. So I think I also don't really care about the numbers, but it's nice for the numbers to be trending in a positive direction.
And so in terms of Angus and things like that with Mitchell is in charge of the GMO. So,
okay. So you don't have to think about it too hard.
No, what I want to spend my day is this with you. And, helping out SendFox, helping out AppSumo, helping out Hall Drop and the different properties. But this is what I want. I want to be a promoter. I want to be an evangelist. I want to meet great fucking cool people and share their stories. And, and share the things we're learning at Sumo Group. And so Mitchell owns that goal, the 200,000.
Okay.
And so he's in charge of it. Not as like I'm taking no responsibility, but I'm here to help him achieve that goal.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I've accidentally been doing with Angus as well. Like for the first video or two that he edited, I had a big, I would send through lots and lots of changes, and I would ask him to put each kind of draft of the video up on Frame.io at the end of every day, just so I can see kind of what direction we're heading in. But now I think having done 2 or 3, he's at the point where I can kind of be a bit more hands off with it, and then just potentially make tweaks at the end and just do the final sign off on it.
So one suggestion for you, if I may.
Of course.
How much? I try to see the actual number. How much money do you make a month from your 600,000 subscribers and millions of views a month? Did you actually say the number?
Yeah, so it's sort of between $4,000 and $7,000 off YouTube AdSense, depending on the month and depending on how many videos are released.
But across all of your social media stuff,
across everything, I think
it seemed like 15 to 20.
Yeah, 15 to 20, closer to 20 these days.
Great.
Yeah.
So everyone, it's so funny whenever we share numbers that people are like 20, 240. All right, he's making 250. I think I actually calculated more around 300 that you're doing. And how cool is it that you get to make a good amount of money, a great amount of money doing that? One suggestion is you don't seem as motivated about the money. Totally fine with that. For example, does Notion pay you every month?
They do for sponsored videos.
How much do they pay?
Not. I can't disclose that publicly by the contract.
Notion should be paying you minimum $10,000 a month right now.
Okay, it's less than that.
No. Minimum.
Yeah.
Minimum. And you should have a 1-year agreement.
Absolutely.
What I'm trying to highlight, though, is not that you need a Jewish person on your team, but you might. But you might want to consider finding someone to pay attention to the things that you don't want to pay attention to.
Okay.
So my suggestion is it might be interesting to find a business person so that you only can focus on your fucking... Like, one thing I just started really thinking about is why do all these fucking musicians have like 10 people that take all their money? I'm like, you need an agent. And then you have a manager, and then you have a booker, and then you have I'm like, you have all these fucking people. And you know why? Because all they want to do is make fucking music. They want to get depressed, do drugs, make music, get in a relationship, break up, make songs about that. And so a thought for you is, what's all the things that if you had someone doing it, like there's no reason you guys couldn't be a 7-figure business. Yeah. There's like absolutely no reason. Like the fact that you're teaching productivity, Notion should be paying you 10,000. All these other companies, and that was my thought with you, and just a suggestion when I was watching. It's like you're doing great, and I don't mean it as criticism. So I hope you or the audience don't take it as that.
But 100%. Please, by all means,
you should be a 7-figure. So
learn.
I think this is where a lot of these influencers, and I've been noticing it, is that do I have a lot of social media influence, like in the scheme of all social media influencers? Not really. It may be in my world, in my marketing world,
in the sort of tech marketing type stuff.
Yeah, tech startups and marketing and things like that. I have a pretty, I would say like I'm like a C, I'm a B- in that world.
Okay,
but in the scheme of like the Casey Neistats or the Tim Ferrisses, like that's like the Garys of the world. They have first names in those worlds, and they can probably get a discount at McDonald's. Most of these people, besides the top level, don't actually make that much money, and it's not, I'm not here to brag. It's not, I'm just trying to give perspective. I don't have a lot of social media influence, but our company makes a lot of fucking money. And I think it's because we focus on the things that actually are a business.
Okay.
Besides just social media. And so what I'm trying to say there is that I think you have many different business opportunities to consider that could take you to 7, potentially 8-figure company. There's no reason you couldn't either license or create your own productivity software. I'm not telling you to go down. I think you should focus on the stuff that you love and the world you love, which is the exploring productivity, exploring learning and sharing about it.
Yeah.
I think there's something there where if you had someone at least considering or evaluating that for you, you found your aim in to run the business.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a 7-figure business in a year.
Well, that could be interesting.
You have 600,000 people interested in learning more from you. Like,
yeah. It's a reasonably big number. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of the influencers, they have a lot of, some of them don't have audiences, or I've noticed a lot of your audiences maybe in countries that aren't super wealthy. They still have money to spend. Like one of the best examples is Michelle Phan, do you remember her?
Oh, yes.
I think
I've come across a YouTube channel.
Yeah, so she created my friend used to work at the company. It's called Ipsh or Ipsy. So she basically took her YouTube audience. She was one of I think the first multi-millionaire in YouTube. But she took her brand, said, "Hey, I'm promoting all this. I'm promoting Notion. I'm promoting this. Like Notion's making a shit ton off you, by the way. All these guys are making a shit ton off you, which is great. It's great for you and great for them." And now she said, "Hey, well, what if I just created my own makeup box? But I'm going to find someone who's an operator to run it all, and I'll just mention it a few times. And I'm going to take 40% or whatever percent of the company she got." The company ended up doing I don't know if they did hundreds of millions, but it was definitely in the 8 figures of recurring revenue.
Oh, damn. That's
Yeah,
good.
big dicking. She was big dicking. It's
big dicking hard, yeah.
It's unisex.
No, that's really interesting that you say that. Like, I've been thinking for a while that we're potentially leaving a lot of money on the table, but and I think we're still thinking quite small because, for example, releasing an online class on Skillshare. There was one I made about how to edit videos. It's like this 3-hour long class. It's pretty good, if I say so myself. And that was making, let's say, around about $3,000 a month. And I was like, oh, damn, this is like more than I'm making as a doctor just off this one video that I filmed in like a day in September 2019. And now we've got another one, which is how to study for exams, which is doing sort of like 5 times better than the previous one. And I've got this long list of like 12 different Skillshare classes that I could do just because it feels like free money if you can just kind of make this one online course. And then A, Skillshare, the platform markets for you. B, they sponsor my videos and therefore my ad rates go up because I'm driving traffic to my own stuff. C, there's that, they pay $10 for every free trial sign up you get. So I'm getting like, 10 to 20 of those each day. And it just feels like completely cheating. And so what I've had in my mind is, hey, potentially we could release one new class every other month, but we actually could do it significantly more frequently than that, and potentially even look to having them on my own website rather than running them through this middleman. Because ultimately, anything on Skillshare, even if it's like a 5-hour long class, the most you'll make from it is maybe $4 or $5 per user. And if I were to charge $10 per user on my website, yes, the numbers might be less because people want stuff for free and with their free trial, but potentially we could get even more sales that way.
So there's a fine line of greed.
Yes.
And I'm still figuring it out. I've been doing the online world 20 years and I'm still figuring out my greed and my ego, and it's evolving. And so there's many times, I would say at our company, there's many, 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 many ways that we're not making as maximum money. And there's many, many, many ways we're maximizing our enjoyment and our customers' enjoyment. And I think everyone has to decide that for themselves. I think for me, it's just figuring out what we want to do. I'll plant a seed. And here's one way that you can think about this. What level of a decision are you making? And so this is something we started really doing, and it's really changed. This is the past few years. And so think about this. So you're doing Skillshare and you're making now, let's just say 10,000 a month, or let's just say, it sounds like 6. So that's whatever, 72,000 a year.
Sure.
So that's a 5-figure decision.
Okay.
Now start thinking about 6-figure decisions. And if you're not doing 7-figure decisions, then you're probably doing too small of things. And so it's as you said, leveling. So when I started AppSumo, my goal was $3,500 a month. That's it.
Yeah.
That's a 5-figure. And so the point that's important there, that's really the key thing, is opportunity cost.
Yeah.
It's almost the same amount of time to do 5-figure decision versus 6 versus 7 versus 8. And the only way you'll get to that next level is saying, is this a 6-figure decision? So like, let me just give you another example. Sendfox.com.
Yeah.
I love it because I fucking hated MailChimp. I hated paying money for like review. I think it's way overpriced. I think all these other things are way overcomplicated. And we launched it and we got it last year I think last year it did like a few $100,000 in revenue. And as a leadership team, we said, if this is not a 7-figure business by the end of 2020, we'll cancel it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because we have these people that work on it that are awesome. And we have other things we could do. Like, think about it this way. There's longer term stuff and there's a whole nother discussion, but could we put those people on AppSumo and get 7 figures of value from them working on that instead? The answer is yes. Okay. So if they're not at least doing it on SendFox, which I love, and I don't want to cancel my baby.
Yeah.
It's a shared baby. That's a community. But that is the harder decisions that I think people don't make. And we're starting to realize that as we're wanting to scale the business.
Yeah. On a related note, there was a tweet I came across last week, which is that audit your time and see how how much of what you're doing is a $10 an hour activity, $100 an hour, $1,000 an hour, and $10,000 an hour activity, and try and do more of the $10,000 an hour activities and less of the $10 an hour things. And now because something that I do a lot is that it feels very productive going on my computer and replying to YouTube comments, and I could do it for hours. And that's nice for the people that I'm replying to, but that's very much a $10 an hour thing that I'm doing with my time.
Be careful with that, though.
Oh, yeah?
Be careful with that. Don't stop doing the things that got you successful. And honestly, one of the questions I had for you is you seem very accessible.
Yeah, I try and reply to all my YouTube comments or at least kind of heart them or like them or whatever.
There's a balance there, man. I don't know the right answer. Yeah. I think I have a friend, Adam, who runs a body tutor site, mybodytutor.com, and he loves helping clients. And he's like, my business isn't growing. And I'm like, that's fine. But it's not growing because you're working with clients. And so if you want to keep working with clients, keep working with clients. If you want to grow the business, then maybe reduce your client load and hire other coaches. And so I lately have been going into replying to more comments and less on I'm only going to do my $10,000 activities.
Yeah.
Because that's been more fulfilling for me to actually see that Emmett or Jason or these different people, like this girl today that was messaging about her business, like I'm replying. That's not I don't make shit.
Yeah.
But it fills me up. And so
I shouldn't feel bad necessarily about.
No, fuck no. Like, I've seen other people.
I shouldn't be making these $10,000 decisions.
No, I on certain ones. I think you have to say what matters to you. And so I remember I met this YouTuber who he had a lot of views. I just didn't like him personally. But he said, he's like, yeah, I have a VA in Philippines who responds to all my comments under my name. And I thought that's impressive because that builds a community. I actually was like, okay, there's something interesting with that. But two, I think if it's all under your name and you're not actually doing any of it, it just doesn't seem sincere. Right? If you're responding and it's not actually you, a little bit, it's on the edge. And so I'm now enjoying it. So I think you have to find what works for you. But I love that you're doing that. And the reason you've built 600,000 people, in I would say really quickly, frankly. Maybe you don't. Do you think it's been quick?
It's been pretty quick. It's not as quick as like Peter McKinnon, but it's pretty quick in the grand scheme of things.
In the scope of YouTube world, you're fucking really impressive around the growth. And it's because the quality is there, but it's also because you've connected. Like someone said this to me, my buddy Charlie Hohen, and I'm going to bring him on my show recently. So everyone should check out Charlie Hohen, Recession Proof Job or charliehohen.com. He said, Noah, why do you think Ramit Sethi and Tim Ferriss are more popular than you?
Okay.
I've been around just as long as them. I'm as old as them. I think I've done interesting things that I'm very proud of for myself. And he said, but why do you think they're more popular? And the answer shocked me. He's like, and this is his answer. He said, because they've gotten people more results than you have. The fact that you are replying and one by one getting results and connecting with your audience is a differentiator.
Okay. Time to magic.
You're giving think about this. All these other fucking creators, they are so big. You can text a thing and then you get like some spam text from them or whatever the fuck happens.
Yeah.
And now, people today are like, oh, you responded? I'm going to love you forever. The bar of excellence is so low. It's easy to win. All you have to do is message your people and tell them you care. If you do, and which is what you do. And I think that's also probably part of your secret sauce that you didn't realize was part of the sauce.
Okay, cool. That makes me feel better about replying to comments.
Fuck yeah, dude. I think there's definitely a balance of scale and I don't know. I don't have a cool like phrase for it, but the scale versus fulfillment ratio. I want to write that down. Scale versus fulfillment.
Scale versus, that's nice. There's that quote by Derek Sivers from Anything You Want, which is one that I always come back to. I think this is my favorite quote of all time. Let me see if I can.
And I've got to head out in a little bit. I haven't left the house all day.
Of course. I think this quote will be a good place to end this. Here we go. I've got it open on my Kindle. So he's talking about this encounter with some businesses. Sometimes MBA types would ask me, "What's your growth rate? What's your retained earnings as a percentage of gross? What are your projections?" I just say, "I have no idea. I don't even know what some of that means. I started this as a hobby to help my friends, and that's the only reason it exists. There's money in the bank, and I'm doing fine, so no worries. They tell me that if I analyzed the business better, I could maximize profitability. Then I'd tell them about the taxi driver in Vegas." And here's the quote: "Never forget why you're really doing what you're doing. Are you helping people? Are they happy? Are you happy? Are you profitable? Isn't that enough?" And every time I read that, I think, you know what? It's fine. It's all good. I'm more than happy doing the stuff I'm doing right now. It's sustainable. It's fun. It helps people. It's growing. I don't need to overthink it. I can just have fun, enjoy the ride, and be the Mexican fisherman.